It is such an honor to be here today. I feel incredibly grateful to have the opportunity to wake up every morning and to serve this community, to hold the line and do everything I can with the skills that I have, with the relationships that I have, to protect our families and our community. And I just want to say thank you so much for inviting me to be here today, to be in space with all of you. We have less than 17 days to go until the June 2nd primary. Ballots are already here. We've been campaigning for about 7 months now, and it is heart and hustle to the finish line. And I'm going to use this time to share a little bit about myself. I know that you heard a quick bio, but want to share with you why we made the decision to run for Congress, especially during this time, this really trying times in this country. My name is Mai Vang. I am the proud daughter of Hmong refugees, as you heard, the eldest of 16 children in my family. I have 6 sisters and 9 brothers. And I grew up, I always say I didn't do anything, I was just born first. And I grew up in Sacramento native. And just a little context of the Hmong people, because right after this event, I'm going to a Hmong American Day festival celebration in Sacramento. But for those that may not know about the Hmong people, I like to share a little bit of the story because it provides insight into the ways in which I see the world as a daughter of refugees. And so my parents came here as refugees because during the Vietnam War, the Hmong people were recruited by the United States, by the CIA, to fight in the guerrilla warfare. 1, to rescue American pilots, and 2, to block the Ho Chi Minh Trail, to block the weapons supply chain from North and South Vietnam. As you all know, that was a war that when we look back on history, that we should have not participated in because so many Americans died. And we withdrew our troops after fall of Saigon. And when that happened, when the United States withdrew their troops, our people was persecuted, and there was a genocide of our people. Over 40,000 Hmong soldiers and villagers died because we allied with the United States. And I often share the story of how Hmong people fought for democracy before we even stepped foot into this country because of what we believe in in democracy and American ideals. My parents were those villagers that were impacted. Laos is one of the most bombed countries in the world. And to this day, they are still trying to remove bombs in the fields where kids are playing. And so my parents fled Laos, was in the jungle for 6 months, crossed the Mekong River, and made it to Thailand to seek refuge. And then they came here to the United States. And my parents settled in Sacramento. My grandparents, didn't have any formal education. All they knew how to do was farm. And so they rented land in Elk Grove, and they planted vegetables and sold it at the farmer's market underneath the freeway in downtown in Sacramento. So I remember growing up as a little girl, helping my grandparents sell vegetables, bok choy, cilantro, green onions, you name it. My parents came here when they were teenagers, so they went to our public high schools. Didn't graduate because they didn't speak English, so they went to alternative schools where they got their GEDs. And I grew up in Sacramento. I went through our public school system. And I was the first in my family to go to college. I went to the University of San Francisco. And the reason why I went to college was because I had an incredible high school teacher that worked with me every Tuesday and Thursday night until 11 o'clock to help me with my college applications and my scholarship applications. And she said to me that if I went to college, it was going to be my one ticket out of poverty. Growing up in South Sacramento as a daughter of a refugee, my parents worked lots of hours but really struggled to support us. And so I grew up on food stamps and on Medicaid. And I share this because I'm in public service and in government because I do believe that government can be used for a force of good if you have the right people in office. And so I am a product of the public system, and had it not been for these systems, I would not be here today. But I did grow up in poverty, and I remember being very ashamed of who I was growing up because I always wonder why I didn't have the cool shoes, or why my neighborhood looked different from other neighborhoods, or why I always heard gunshots at night, and sometimes the police wasn't there fast enough to help us. And so I wanted to leave Sacramento, which is why I went to college, right? To leave poverty behind. But when I went to college was my political awakening, because at the University of San Francisco was when I actually learned about the Hmong people. I didn't learn it in my K-12 education. I learned it reading a sociology textbook that the United States recruited the Hmong people. And that was the beginning of my activism on campus, and recognizing that we have systems in place that creates the outcomes that we see today. And so how do we change systems? And so I was a pre-med student because my immigrant parents said you either become a doctor, an engineer, or a lawyer if you're gonna be successful. I didn't become any of those things. But I was pre-med, I was pre-med student, and I got really interested in system change. And I thought to myself, why do we spend so much money on treatment when we can move upstream and spend more money on prevention to save costs and to improve people's lives? So I got really interested in public health, and I went to UCLA where I got my master's in public health policy and my master's in Asian American studies. And my thesis at UCLA was actually about healthy aging and seniors, and how do we create the conditions and the environment to make sure that our seniors are thriving in their lives. After I graduated from UCLA, I got a call from my parents that they needed help at home. And so poverty is the reason why I left Sacramento, but it's also the reason why I returned. I thought to myself, what good is it to have 2 masters from one of the top public schools in the country, UCLA, but my family is still struggling. My community is still struggling. So I came back home to South Sacramento to help my parents pay the mortgage, take care of my siblings. And when I came back to Sacramento, I looked around and realized that not a lot had changed in South Sacramento. And at UCLA, I was an organizer for the Obama campaign. I worked for the Asian Pacific American Labor Alliance, and I was taught how to organize. And so when I came back to Sacramento, I started organizing in South Sacramento. I was a community organizer in South Sacramento, and registering people to vote and getting them engaged in the political process. And in 2013, this is when I came back from college, there was massive school closures happening in Sac City Unified School District. And many of those schools were in low-income neighborhoods where many of those parents didn't speak English. And they came to us meaning me and John, who he's actually one of the co-founders of an organization we founded in South Sacramento called HIP, Hmong Innovating Politics, to register our communities to vote. And our parents reached out to us and said, hey, our school is being closed, what do we do? And they had met us because we were holding voter education forums. We were translating the ballot into English and Hmong and teaching parents kind of how to advocate for themselves. And we asked the parents, do you know who your school board member is? And many of the parents said, who's that? And we realized that we had to do a lot of education. And that's where we started organizing our parents and getting them involved, going to school board meetings, speaking up. And that was the time, back in 2015, when the parents said, hey, Mai, you should think about running for office. We need somebody on the school board that understands what's happening on the ground with our parents and our students. And I told them no, for several reasons. One, I just got out of college and I have student debt. And being a school board member, you only get paid like a $200 stipend, right? That was the first reason. The second was, I was also not a parent. I really believe that our parents are the best advocates on the school board. And then one of the parents asked me, well, how many nieces and nephews do you have in the school district? And I started counting, like 32 nieces and nephews. And then the parent said to me, well, you are a care holder in education, and if you don't know the answer, we're gonna be right there next to you. So in 2016, we ran for school board and won. And if you remember, in 2016 was the first Trump administration, Trump 1.0. And it was a really scary time, just like right now for many of our families throughout this region. And one of the first things I did was work with my colleagues to pass the first ever safe haven resolution that was a model language for the state of California to implement process and protocols at our school site, at our district site, of what would happen if ICE came on campus. So I was really proud to lead that effort. I served my term, one full term, 4 years, and then I learned really quickly as a school board member that we could do everything we can to support our teachers in the classroom, to provide resources for our students. But what happens when our students leave our neighborhood schools? They go back into the neighborhoods. And if they don't have access to recreational opportunities, if our parks are not safe and clean, they will have the same outcomes. And so I felt that nobody on the city council was fighting for our youth in our Title I schools, really in low-income neighborhoods. And so I ran for city council in 2020, and that was a competitive race because we were outspent 1-3. And we won through running one of a largest field campaign in the city of Sacramento. And then in 2020, what happened in 2020? COVID. I know. Every time I run for something, there's like a crisis that happens. In 2020, COVID did happen. And we won in 2020, and I was sworn in on Zoom. But one of the first things I did was trying to find vaccine to support and to save lives, especially for our seniors. I represented the zip code that had the highest cases of COVID in Sacramento County at that time. And a big part of that is because I represent a community that's incredibly diverse, that has big families like mine, that lives in multi-generational households. So when one person's infected with COVID, everyone's infected with COVID. And so I organized, even though I was a council member, organized with 20 plus organizations, nonprofits, and churches to put political pressure on the county and the medical system to say, if you don't give me the first 1,000 vaccines, I'm going to the news, I'm gonna share the data and saying you're not rolling out these vaccines in our neighborhoods, because they were being rolled out in more wealthier neighborhoods. We secured the first 1,000 vaccine, and we ended up running a vaccination clinic for 1 year during the pandemic. That was the largest regional vaccination clinic in the region. And we vaccinated thousands and thousands of folks. I share this story because in moments of crisis, our healthcare system is not set up to take care of our loved ones. I'm a Kaiser patient, and Kaiser and Sutter was sending their patients to the Pinnell Community Center to get vaccinated because they were, although 95% of the time we vote unanimously. But I am someone that will not compromise my values on what the budget should reflect. But when things need to get done in the city, my colleagues come to me. That's the reason why we've been able to pass 3 citywide ballot measures. The first ever Sacramento Children's Fund, a library measure that ensured that our library stayed open for our seniors and our youth, and working with the former mayor, Darrell Steinberg, to change our charter so that we can invest tourism money, not just in downtown, but in other parts of the neighborhoods that are underserved. I love being a city council member. I love it with all my heart. And if we were having this conversation a year ago in May of 2025, and you told me I was running for Congress, I would tell you you're crazy. Because I didn't make the decision to actually run until late fall. And a big part of that was because last year, after 2024, when Trump was elected again, for the first 5 months of 2025 last year, I didn't hear anything from my congresswoman. We were at the No Kings protest. ICE was picking people off the street. Our democracy, like right now, is under attack, and we didn't hear anything. And many community members, family members, mutual aid efforts, started looking for a potential candidate to challenge the congresswoman because we felt like she wasn't holding town halls and there was no sense of urgency. And a few community members asked me, Mai, you should think about running. And I told them no. No for several reasons, and I will share with you why. One, I don't take running against an incumbent lightly. I think there's for multiple reasons. One, I have deep gratitude and respect for Doris Matsui. Her and her husband have served this region for about 47 years combined, almost half a century. And I often share the story of how my mom has a photo of the Matsui family on her desk at work. And how when the Hmong people came here, we looked to Congresswoman Bob Matsui as an icon, really, as an Asian American fighter for our community. And so I told the community no, and that I want to meet with the Congresswoman. I want to sit down and have a conversation about what's been happening, and I wanted to work with her in partnership. And as a city council member, I was requesting meeting with the Congresswoman, and it was so hard to get a meeting with her. I have the receipts for it, multiple emails, 6 to 7 emails, and it wasn't until the end of the fall that I finally got a meeting with her because I got her number. I texted her and said, Congresswoman, I hate to get you involved with this, but I've been trying to get on your calendar. Is it possible that we could meet? And so we got a chance to meet because I texted her and we scheduled that meeting. I was hoping we would schedule it outside of the federal building because I was going to talk to her about campaigns. And in the federal building, you're not allowed to talk about campaigns. I finally got that meeting with her. And it was the end of August, and I walked into the federal Matsui building, because the building's named after her husband, and I had 30 minutes with her, and the first 15 minutes, I used that time to thank her for her service, to say thank you for securing money for the I-Bridge, and I asked her how she was doing, especially under this authoritarian administration. And then I started sharing with her the work that we were doing on the ground on protecting immigrants and refugees and the policies we were doing at the city level to hold the line. And I asked the Congresswoman 15 minutes in, what is your position on immigration? And then she turned to her staff and she said, "What is our position on immigration?" Yeah. And her staff said to me, "Well, have you spoken to the state assembly, the state senator or the assembly member?" And I said, "Yes, I have, but immigration is a federal issue." And then in that moment, I was sitting there not as a councilwoman, I was sitting there more as a constituent. And I just thought to myself, as a millennial, with our country being under attack by this president, that I couldn't have someone like her represent us in this moment. It didn't feel right, and that we really needed bold and courageous fighters and leaders in this moment. At least someone that understood. I mean, I was just hoping she would say something about it, right? And she said to me, "Well, Mai, we should just be focused on winning back the House. That's the most important thing." And I absolutely do agree with her. We definitely do have to win back the House. That is of utmost importance. But in that moment, I just thought to myself, we gotta win back the House, but we gotta win back the House with fighters, because it's like the establishment that created the conditions for what we have today, right? We lost to Trump twice. And there's a reason why, because the Democratic Party is completely out of touch from working families and seniors and folks who are struggling like me who have student college debt. And so in that moment, while she was talking to me, I was like, there was all these voices. It was like, "You should run." "No, you shouldn't run." "Maybe you should tell her that you're considering." "No, don't tell her that, because you're not sure if you're running." And so it was about 10:28. I had 2 minutes left, and her staff said, "Well, Councilmember Vang, your time is up. It's time for you to go." And so I grabbed my backpack, and I said, "Congresswoman?" And she says, "Yes." And I said, "I have one last thing I want to share with you." And my palms was really sweaty because I was really nervous, because she's the Congresswoman and I have a lot of respect for her. And I said to her, "I'm considering running for Congress." And she looked at me and she said, "Are you running against me?" And I said to her, "Look, I would love an opportunity to sit down with you, but we have to do it outside of the federal building because we can't talk about campaigns. I'd be happy to move my calendar around so we can talk why I'm considering." I shook her hand, I walked out of the building, and then I called my husband, had a conversation with him, and he's like, "We're doing this, huh?" I'm like, "Yeah, we are." And it's been 7 months since then. It's been 7 months. I get a lot of critiques, well, let me just share for Placerville for all of you. I know that this is the first time, because of Prop 50, that you will no longer have to worry about McClintock, which is really great. So let me start off with that. I totally understand that, but now you have an opportunity for the first time to really have a Democrat in this seat to represent you. The question that you're going to be faced with is, what type of Democrat do you want to send to the halls of Congress? So let me share a little bit about the difference between me and the Congresswoman. I think one of the most important factors that's different, contrast from both of us, is one, our campaign does not take any corporate PAC money. And as I've been running this campaign with my team, I have learned why so many people do not run for Congress. It's because it is so expensive to run a congressional race, and that many of these seats are actually bought already by corporations. And if we are going to run a campaign and we're going to send a fighter to the halls of Congress, that person really needs to be independent and not influenced by corporations. And so I am so proud that our campaign has raised over $800,000 without any corporate PAC money. That also means it makes it harder, because she has 2 times the money that we have. Right now, she has about $1.3 million cash on hand, but 70% of her donations are all corporations. And what I often share is, when you are funded by a corporate credit card, when your campaign is funded by a corporate credit card, you're not going to move with a sense of urgency on issues like Medicare for all, or even trying to stop endless wars, because you actually take money from war manufacturer companies. And so that's a big difference between me and the Congresswoman, is that I think that's probably one of the largest difference. And so it shows you the ways in which we move. I am a big proponent of Medicare for all, even before I decided to run for Congress. And the Congresswoman is not. I have often been asked, Mai, well, if you support Medicare for all, how are you going to pay for it? It's so expensive. And what I will share with you is that we're paying for it now. We have one of the most expensive healthcare systems in our country, but the worst outcomes. I know as seniors, as I think about my grandma, is that they're on Medicare, But we need to be able to expand that, making sure that there's no out-of-pocket expensive. That stuff should just be guaranteed. It should just be a right because healthcare is a human right. And yes, there's the argument of where is the money? We have the money, we just don't have the political will. If we can continue to fund these wars, billions every day, we absolutely have the money to support systems of care. Another difference between me and the Congresswoman is that I have taken a position that congressional reps should not be trading stocks. There is a bipartisan bill by Republicans and Democrats now that would ban stock trading among congressional reps. The Congresswoman has not yet signed on. And a big reason why is because as we're being pulled into this war in Iran, her stocks does go up because she has investment in war manufacturer companies. When someone is detained by ICE, she has investment with contractors with ICE. Their profit goes up. And I think that when that happens, you're not going to move in a sense of urgency, even if you say, I'm against what ICE is happening, right? I'm against this war, but your investment doesn't say that, right? And so that's another huge difference. I think we also have to overturn Citizens United. There's too much dark money in politics, which is the reason why it's so hard to fundraise for congressional races. And then lastly, the other piece I'll share with all of you is I have taken a position on immigration. I know I've said abolish ICE, but I want to explain what does that mean. ICE didn't exist before 2003, and we have still been able to enforce immigration. And I think that it's important for us to go back into that model when it was under INS. ICE right now operates as a secret police force for the Trump administration. And it was not about enforcement, it was really about terrorizing our refugee and immigrant communities. This fight is incredibly personal for me, especially because I'm a daughter of a refugee. I'm a recent newlywed to a son of Mexican immigrants whose family members are dreamers in DACA, public school teachers who came here when they were little kids, went through our system, but have been contributing back. And we need to be able to invest more money in the administration to speed up some of these processes and have a pathway to citizenship. So these are some of my position, but what I will tell you right now is that we are up, we have 17 days, and I know it's still gonna be an uphill climb, but I am so hopeful because there has been polling that has come out that says that we got a real good shot at making top 2. And not just making top 2, but there is also a possibility, as I'm looking at John, who's my comms director, which I didn't believe before, that we could actually knock out the Congresswoman, where it's us and a Republican. Wow. And I know that that's true. So I know that that's true because last night on her website, if you go to matsuiforcongress.com and you go /media, she's asking her corporate donors to boost the Republican right now, asking voters to vote for the Republicans. We just found that out last night. So what does that mean? She wants voters to vote for the Republicans because she knows that our campaign will win the base for the Democratic Party and the decline to state. So she is trying to pull those votes away. Don't take my word for it. You can go to the website and see it. And so we're going to be sharing that with the news. That's how I know that the polling is absolutely on point, but that also means the polling just tells us what is out there. That is the attitude of the voters, that if you were to vote for, if the election was today, let me share with you the polling, if the election was today and they surveyed 450 most likely voters in the primaries, maybe one of you filled out the survey, I don't know. If the election was today, who would you vote for? The Congresswoman and myself are literally neck to neck. She has 24% and we have 22, but the margin of error is like ±5. So it's like a toss-up, right? With the Republican and 34% undecided, which is huge. When you put our bio and my title, we actually are ahead. By how many points, John? 8 points ahead, just my bio and my title. When you share our messaging around healthcare for all, around immigration and endless wars, right? We then place first. The Republican then goes second, and she makes third. That is what the polling says. And I think that they know that polling, which is why they're trying to pull some votes away from us right now and encouraging Republican turnout right now. And so I share this because we got a really good shot. But the polling can only be true if we can saturate the universe and turn out voters, which is where I am going to make my pitch, especially as someone who doesn't take corporate PAC money. In the campaign, we talk about 4 T's. Your time, your treasure, your time, your talent, talk, and treasure. So your time. We have one of the largest ground operation that this region has ever seen. Over 800 volunteers. Actually, right now we have canvassers out throughout Congressional District 7. If you want to walk your own neighborhood, we can set you up for that. If you can phone bank from your house, that would go a really long way. So that's time, because time is one of the most important things we have, but you can participate in that way. The other piece is your talent. If you want to cook for our volunteers, if you know how to bartend, some people have bartended and made Mai Tais at fundraisers. If you have a cool talent that you want to share with the campaign team, we welcome it. Also, talk to as many people as possible to let them know that there's another option on the ballot for the first time in 21 years, and especially for this region, right? You get to vote for a Democrat, but the question is going to be, what type of Democrat do you want to send to the halls of Congress? And then the last piece is the treasure. Every contribution goes a long way. Our weekly bill to be able to keep a 30-second ad on TV for a week is $75,000. I know. When my team told me that we need an ad on broadcast, I was like, why? I don't watch TV anymore. I'm on social media. But what we also know is that 50% of most likely voters are watching TV, broadcasts, and streaming. And so if we don't compete at that medium, and we only allow her to compete in that medium, we will lose. And so we've been paying $75K every week to keep our ads running. And as of right now, we have $120,000 left in the bank. That means that we will run, if we raise no money from like right now, we will run out before the election, which is why we have a house party every single day. We are calling, dialing for dollars, all grassroots. And so my ask today is for your vote. Absolutely, that probably is the most important thing. But that if you're able to make a contribution at any level, $5, $10, $25, it will help the campaign. And the other piece is we have over 5,000 individual donors that have given to the campaign compared to the Congresswoman, which is probably less than 300 individual donors. But they're mostly like maxed out donors, like big maxed out. It shows the type of campaign that we're running because we have so many individuals. And the majority of our individual donors are also in California as well. We have donations from all over the country, but the majority of our small donors comes from California. And so I'm also asking for your support because it's not just my running for Congress, but it's all of us. We are running for Congress together, and I cannot do this alone. And when I get to the halls of Congress, I'm taking all of you with me. I am gonna come back and do those town halls, even though our Congresswoman does not do town halls. I will show up even in towns that are more purple and red, because I think it's really important to be able to work across the aisle. And so I'm an organizer at heart. I am someone who always shows up, and that's my commitment to each and every one of you, that when I get there, I'm gonna fight as hard as I can for this country, for this region. And yeah, I also want to share with you that we are building so much momentum. We have the support and the endorsement of the National Nurses United, of the United Auto Workers, of No Dems Left Behind, of Sunrise Movement, Working Families Party, and also Justice Democrats, the organization that recruited AOC to run. They are only selecting 10 candidates this year to support across the country, and we are one of those 10 candidates. And so a lot of momentum. We just got the endorsement of the Sacramento Bee as well, which is amazing. For the first time in 21 years, they've always endorsed the Congresswoman, but they do believe that it is time for a new generation of leadership. And so that's a little bit about our campaign, and thank you so much, and I hope to count on your support.